So let's just jump right in. Picture this, a world, just holding its breath. An entire empire has just been utterly humiliated. We're talking 3 of its legendary legions, the very symbol of its unstoppable power, just gone, wiped off the map in some dark foreign forest. And right at the very center of all this, an emperor is growing old. I mean, this is the guy who basically built an entire age of peace. And now he's nearing his end. And trust me, everyone knows it. Which brings us to the real heart of the matter. Succession is coming. And you've got to understand that one simple fact, it's more powerful and way more dangerous than any invading army. It's the kind of thing that can quietly change the entire course of history, maybe even more permanently than a war. So what we're going to do is zoom in on this really pivotal 5-year window from 11 AD to 15 AD. Now, this isn't going to be your typical story of epic battles and grand conquests. Nope, this is a story about tightening the belt, hardening the defenses, and, well, recalculating everything. It's the story of how a massive empire gets ready for a future without the guy who started it all. All right, let's set the stage here. The year is 11 AD, and the whole world just feels kind of fragile, you know? You've got these incredibly powerful empires that look totally stable on the surface, but just underneath, oh man, the pressure is seriously building. You've basically got 2 superpowers dominating the whole map. Over in the West, you have the Roman Empire, and they are psychologically reeling. That massive defeat in Germania a couple years back, it didn't just cost them soldiers, it completely shattered the myth that they were invincible. Then you look to the east, and the Han dynasty seems totally unshakable, right? A true marvel of bureaucracy. But behind closed doors, its court is just a viper's nest of backstabbing and political games. So here's the key takeaway for 11 AD. Rome's problem is totally out in the open, right? It's external. You've got an aging emperor, an heir that nobody's really thrilled about, and a border that's suddenly a defensive wall instead of a launch pad for more conquest. But the Han dynasty? Their problem is all internal. It's this quiet, simmering power struggle happening deep inside the court. And all the while, the world is getting more connected, but that just means this fragile piece is about to be tested like never before. And so, yeah, the whole world just kind of holds its breath. The next few years, from 11 to 13 AD, they aren't about big, flashy action. It's all about this deliberate, super tense period of preparation for the transition that everyone knows is coming. It all really kicked off in 11 AD. Out on the Rhine frontier, Rome's big dreams of conquest pretty much died on the vine. They were replaced by this new, much more pragmatic strategy, defense, led by Tiberius. Then, in 12 AD, the focus completely shifts. It pivots from the frontiers right back to the palace, to the succession problem itself. And by the time we hit 13 AD, all these changes, both outside and inside, have created this massive psychological shift across the entire empire. And you know what's so fascinating about this moment? It's the total change in mindset. This wasn't Rome showing weakness, not at all. Rome wasn't retreating. It was redefining what ambition even meant. They were learning that just managing this huge, complex system, well, that was a victory in itself. Ambition wasn't just about grabbing more land anymore. It was about the incredible challenge of just holding on to what you already had. And this whole situation just perfectly illustrates the 2 very different ways these empires handled the exact same problem. In Rome, you have Augustus, who absolutely remembered the horror of the civil wars. For him, ambiguity was the real enemy. So in 12 AD, he makes a clear move. He formally elevates Tiberius to be his equal in power. Boom. The line of succession is crystal clear, no question. But in China, the process was, well, a lot less direct. The regent, Wang Mang, he wasn't just named the heir, no, he made himself indispensable. He mastered the game of court politics and wrapped himself up in this image of perfect Confucian virtue, a totally different playbook. So by 13 AD, you could argue the most important battle was already over, and it wasn't fought on some distant frontier. It was won in the minds of the Roman people. Think about it. Imperial rule wasn't some emergency fix anymore. It was just normal. The whole idea of the old republic, with all the competing senators and chaotic elections, that was starting to sound like ancient history. An entire generation had grown up knowing nothing else but the rule of one man at the top. And then it comes. The year everyone had been waiting for, probably with a mix of dread and anticipation. 1480. This was it. The year that the entire system, so carefully built by one single man, was finally going to face its ultimate test. In August of that year, after more than 4 decades in charge, a reign that ended a century of brutal civil war, that created a professional army, that completely reshaped the foundations of government, Augustus died. Just like that. The architect was gone. And this was the one question on literally everyone's mind. I'm talking senators in Rome, merchants all the way in Alexandria, soldiers freezing on the Rhine. Could this whole imperial project, this huge, complex machine, actually survive without its founder? Or was it all about to just collapse back into total chaos? And the answer, unbelievably, was yes. It worked. Look, the transfer of power to Tiberius was definitely tense, but it happened. There were mutinies flaring up with the legions, really testing the new guy's authority right out of the gate, but he shot them down. And for the first time in its history, Rome managed to transfer supreme power without tearing itself apart in another catastrophic civil war. The system actually worked. Okay, so let's fast forward just a bit to 15 AD and see how this all shakes out. Because the aftermath of these successions, it sent Rome and China down 2 completely different roads. So this really lays it all out. You've got 2 empires at a major crossroads. In Rome, Tiberius plays it safe. He goes for cautious consolidation. His legitimacy comes straight from the system. He was the chosen heir, plain and simple. And the result? The system holds. But in China, Wang Mang takes a totally different route. He sets himself up as a great moral reformer. His legitimacy isn't based on inheritance, no, it's based on his claim that he's more virtuous than the dynasty itself. And the result of that gamble? Well, he's basically planting the seeds for the dynasty to fracture.
So when the dust settles in 1580, it's clear. The 2 empires have chosen their destinies. Rome decided to prioritize stability over flashy new glory. They got an administrator, not another conqueror, to lead them. Meanwhile, in China, the stage was being set for some truly radical change, and for a major break in a dynastic line that had lasted for centuries.
So why should we care so much about this little 5-year window? What's the big deal? Well, it's because this period marks a fundamental shift in what it even meant to run an empire. It was truly the end of one age and the very beginning of a brand new one. What Rome proved here was that a whole new type of state was possible, what you might call an institutional empire. This is a system of government that's so strong, so deeply embedded in its laws and its bureaucracy that it can actually outlive any single person. It can survive the death of its own creator and transfer power without self-destructing. That was the real, lasting legacy of Augustus. And that really brings us to the core lesson of these 5 years, doesn't it? The age of just reckless expansion, it was over. The age of governance had begun. And believe me, as any leader will tell you, governance is so much harder than conquest. It takes patience, it takes administration, it takes compromise, skills that are a world away from what makes a great warrior. So the world in 15 AD has totally recalibrated. Rome proved it could bend without breaking. It showed its resilience. China, on the other hand, was teetering on the brink of a major crisis. So you see, this wasn't an ending at all. It was a new beginning. The foundations had been stress tested and set. And now the real pressure could begin.